Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're going to tackle a topic that I know might sound a little dry: data organization. But stick with me here because I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to see it as a research superpower. Seriously, it's the secret sauce that makes your work faster, easier to share, and way, way more valuable.
All right, let's just rip the Band-Aid off with a pretty intense question. I want you to think about your own research projects right now. All those folders and files on your computer. Is it possible that all that data you worked so hard for is basically worthless? I know, that sounds harsh, but it's a really important question we've got to ask.
And look, that's not just me trying to be dramatic. This idea comes straight from the source material for this explainer. It's this powerful quote here: "If data and processing are not carefully organized, documented, and protected, they are virtually worthless." It nails a huge realization that's been happening in the scientific world. Without some kind of structure, your data just loses its meaning. No one can check your work, and your conclusions, well, they're kind of built on shaky ground.
And that brings us to what I like to call the data chaos problem. And this is not some theoretical thing, right? This is that real world data sharing snafu that happens all the time. You know that feeling, that panic when you can't find that one crucial file, or when you send your script to a collaborator and they just can't get it to run. It's a massive waste of time, and honestly, it really undermines the integrity of the research itself.
Okay, but here's the good news. The research community totally saw this happening. They looked at the chaos and said, okay, we can do better. And that's when these really important movements and standards started popping up, giving us a clear path out of that mess and towards a much more professional, reliable way of doing science. So what was the goal? Well, it was a pretty huge shift in thinking. The big idea was to start treating our data and our code as first-class citizens, just as important as the final fancy published paper. And to do that, they needed to develop standardized vocabularies, ontologies, and set up these frameworks like FAIR and BIDS. It's all about making sure that the data and the code can stand on their own, get their own unique IDs, and even be published separately. And that opens the door for some really cool stuff, like automated analysis and truly reproducible science. Okay, so where do we even begin with all this? The very first principle is super simple, but it is so powerful. You have to keep your project contained. That's it. That's rule number one.
So what does that mean, contained? We're talking about creating what's called an autonomous project. Think of it like its own little self-sufficient universe in a folder. You're basically putting a fence around your work. Everything the project needs to run, all the data, the scripts, the results, it's all inside that fence. And everything it doesn't need, like, software installers or your vacation photos, that stuff stays outside.
And you can see the difference right here. I mean, look at this. On the left, you've got total chaos. It's a junk drawer of files. You could never send that to someone and expect them to understand it. But on the right, that's a clean, professional, and totally portable structure. Anyone could grab that single folder, look inside, and immediately get what's going on. And why does this matter so much? Well, doing this one simple thing has some massive benefits. You can update your software, like Python or MATLAB, and not have to worry about totally breaking your old projects. You can zip up that one single folder and share your entire project, no mess. It is, without a doubt, the absolute foundation for doing good, reproducible science.
Okay, so once we've got our project contained, what's next? Well, that brings us to our next big idea, the FAIR principles. This builds right on top of that foundation of good organization. See, FAIR isn't just about being neat and tidy. It's about making your data truly useful, not just for you, but for the entire world.
FAIR is an acronym, right? It stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And it's basically your roadmap for your data. Think about it. First, can people even find your data set out there in the world? Okay, if they find it, can they actually access it? Great, they've got it. But now, can their software even read it? Can it interoperate with their tools? And finally, the big one, is it documented well enough that they can confidently reuse it for a totally new study? Answering yes to all of those, that's what gives your data a life way beyond its original purpose.
And just so we're clear, this is not just some friendly suggestion anymore. These FAIR principles are the real reason that major funding agencies all over the world now require you to submit a data management plan. They want to make sure that the research they're paying for is going to have a real lasting impact.
All right, we've talked about the big picture. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the practical, everyday rules that will save you from pulling your hair out later. Seriously, these are the small habits that make a gigantic difference.
Okay, listen up. If you forget everything else I say today and only remember one thing, make it this. Do not use spaces in your file names, ever. I'm serious. Use underscores, use hyphens. I don't care, just no spaces. They will break your command line tools. They will break your scripts. It's a nightmare. It is the #1 rookie mistake, and it is the easiest thing to fix, starting today. And here is another absolute game changer. Look at the column on the left. Your computer is trying to sort these files alphabetically, right? So day 10 comes right after day 1. It's a total mess. Now look at the right. By using this one simple format, year-month-day, your files will always sort themselves perfectly in order by date. It's automatic, it's clean, it's just so satisfying. So this table here really breaks down these key naming rules. We just talked about the date format, YYY-MM-DD. That's a must. Next up is zero padding. You see how it's sub 001 instead of just sub 1? That little zero makes sure that sub 010 shows up after sub 009, not after sub 001. Another great tip, name your files from general to specific. It just makes them way more intuitive to find later. And lastly, always treat your subject IDs as text, not as numbers. You do not want Excel trying to do math on sub 007.
All right, 2 last quick rules for you. First, never start a file name with a number. A lot of programming languages like Python and MATLAB just hate that and won't let you do it. And second, every single project you ever create should have a README file in the main folder. Just a simple text file. It's the instruction manual for your project. It tells your future self and anyone else what this thing is, why it exists, and how it works.
So what's the big payoff? What do you get for all this careful organization? Well, your research becomes shareable. It's ready for prime time. You can now confidently upload it to professional data repositories like OSF, Zenodo, and others. This is how you contribute back to the wider scientific community. It's how your work gets seen, gets used, and really makes the impact it deserves.
But look, don't let this overwhelm you. I love this piece of advice from the source material. Focus on moving toward better documentation and organization, not trying to get it all perfect from the beginning. This is a journey, not a destination. The goal isn't to be perfect overnight. It's just to start moving in the right direction. Just add a README to your next project. Just start using that YYY-MMD format. Little steps, they lead to huge improvements over time.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Once all that chaos is gone, once your data is clean and organized and ready to go, what's next? What new patterns, what fresh insights, what amazing discoveries are you now totally free to find? Thanks so much for joining me.